I'm getting ready to go outside and do some work, and I'm noticing there's a tour. There's actually, I would go take pictures of it, but I don't want to call out any neighbors or anything. But there's a lot of folks standing in somebody's backyard pointing at where we've cleared all the trees. And there were people standing in the driveway of the house next door, which is my property as well, looking things over. I should probably put up a sign that says, please let me know if you're over here, because it is trespassing. But I do want to know where people are on the property in case something goes wrong. But ultimately, standing there, the body language is arms crossed and pointing and stuff like this. And you know what? I don't really care. I know what is right for my property. I know what I'm doing within the law of the area and within the rules. And I also know about best management practices. And you've got to have this kind of fortitude as well. It is inspiring me to do video because at first glance, I'm thinking, what is it their business? Now, they may not be saying anything bad. They may be saying, oh my gosh, it's going to look beautiful. It's going to look great. That's what needs to go on inside your head. It doesn't really matter what they think. It's your yard. It's your private property. And in the sense of what we're doing here, managing the erosion, fixing the retaining wall, cutting down trees that can reach houses, well, who can argue with that? But ultimately, it is kind of humorous because what you're doing will shock your neighbors. Now, I know a lot of you live out in the middle of nowhere, and you may not have any neighbors that are close by that you've got to worry about. But the opinions of others are certainly just their opinions. In many cases, they're uneducated opinions. In many cases, they haven't invested the time and resources that you've invested in a program like this to learn how to manage land projects. But here's some quick tips. It's always better to involve them in the outcome, the progress and outcome. You need to let them know that it's happening in phases. When you clear a piece of land, you're not going to have grass on it in a week. It just doesn't work that way. Unless you're sodding the property, you're not going to have grass on it in a week. If you're, in my case, I'll be out there spreading alfalfa. I always wave to the neighbors and take the time to chat with them, even though it disrupts my ability to get the work done. I've been out at 10 o'clock at night doing stuff because I've had to talk to neighbors and answer questions and stuff like that. The majority of my close neighbors, those people that are immediately nearby, they don't have a problem with what I'm doing. They understand why, and some of them wish they could have done it to their own property. But ultimately, in a larger community where you have like a county commissioners or you have a city board, it can be trouble. You can run into trouble. You can run into delays. Again, that's why we do the projects in phases. That way, if you get shut down after your first phase, then you're okay. You don't have to worry about it. You can plan in the other phases. I went to the city in advance and asked about development plans, if they needed a land management plan, if they needed any of these standard documents that are used. They said, no, don't worry about it, just as long as you're following the rules. And I said, okay, I'm following the rules. But there wasn't any guidance on what those rules meant. For example, they have a list of recommended trees that should be planted on the property. I'm going to have more than 30 species of trees on this property after it's finished, and the majority of those are not on their original list. In fact, many of the trees on their list are not suited for this area. They're trees that will cause problems if they're not properly managed, but they tend to look like nice trees. But ultimately, there is a rule, for example, that you cannot plant a tree that doesn't have a certain caliper stem. It's got to be basically about this big around before you can plant it. Well, buying trees that big around, that's $100 and some a tree. I'm not planting a tree that big around. I'm planting a little tiny tree. The deer are going to chew the hell out of most of them, and then I'm going to have probably a 50% survival rate. And then those trees will be cultivated to shape and all that other stuff. I'm not buying a nursery tree from a local nurser who happens to sit on the board of these design plans or had sat on the board at one time. Your area will be different. Hopefully you live in an environment that will allow this. But what I find is the more affluent areas understand what you're doing. The more affluent areas will allow these things. You have a larger lot. You're further away from your neighbors. But ultimately, you want to put stuff in place that's going to make your property look great. Now, what looks great to you might be different than what looks great to other people. These people gawking at my yard right now, slowing down their Lexus or their Mercedes. Oh, what's going on? They're all looking out like, and I'm not joking that these people are rednecks or anything. They're pretty sophisticated people. They know what they're doing in their area of expertise. But when it comes to what I'm doing, I've invested the time and resources to have that education, to know what looks well from an environmental standpoint, and you should have that too. You want to surround yourself by naturalists, people who have invested in learning how the regional climate works and the regional trees work, and how the environmental systems work. You want to look at the microenvironment. We have a pond. I just ordered some mosquito fish to put in the pond. That's the microenvironment. Am I attracting frogs? Am I attracting mosquitoes? People don't want mosquitoes. They love to have the frogs. You need to set it up so that you don't have the bad things and you have more of the good things. Do you have welcoming spaces where people can stand and just kind of be out of the way? So if they walk down the side over here, that's okay. They're not going to get in the way of anything. But if they were out in the back of the lot, I'd be a little concerned. Some people are showing this with the light. I can't hear what they're saying, but I have found people out on the property later at night when it's dark outside, and I don't want any of that. They can come out during the day, and especially if they let me know they're coming, I'd be happy to welcome them and show them around. But ultimately, if they don't have the proper interpretation, they may be confused by elements such as the brush dam at the bottom of the hill. They might be confused why there's a giant road in my backyard now. They might be confused why there's no grass. And you've got to help them with these things with some interpretation. So I'm going to do a PowerPoint deck and put that online with some more video. There's a set of videos that my neighbors will see, and there's a set of videos that you will see. And of course, on the ones that my neighbors will see, I'm going to be a little more pleasant. I might even comb my hair. I'm getting, obviously I'm getting ready to go outside and spread some alfalfa seed. But they will be confused. You can't change that. But not all of them. Like my neighbor across the street brought me all of his old seed that we're going to put out in an area and see what grows. Some of the seed is like 4 or 5 years old, so we're just going to throw it out in the cover crop and see what happens. More of a natural farming technique, I guess. But ultimately, it will be humorous to you. You cannot let it bother you. You're going to look out there and you'll see people with these faces like they just ate a turd. And they point around like a stormtrooper. You got to not worry about that. Now, I worry about it sometimes because I'm curious about what are they thinking. When they look at it, what are they thinking about? When I'm using natural mulch, basically wood chips from the tree service company, when I have a pile of that stuff it's 8 to 10 feet tall and 4 to 5 feet wide, fresh dumped out of the truck, and I let it sit for a few days before I start having it shoveled out. What are they thinking about that? Are they confused? See, a lot of people are using this painted mulch, this monstrosity of mulch that's been dyed and chemically treated so that it doesn't rot. I want my mulch to rot. I'll bring in new mulch every year. I'll bring it in thick layered beds, raised beds, and they bring in just the minimal. Like I don't want to pay too much for mulch. Well, you don't have to. You can do it the right way, and even shredded mulch is available at a better per truckload. Now I buy 16, it's like 13 cubic yards at a time. They're only buying whatever covers the basics of the yard, but I'm buying 13 to 14 cubic yards at a time, and I'm paying less than they're paying for that painted mulch. I feel it looks better over time, but it actually feeds the soil. It feeds the soil. It cultivates those microbes. We don't use any pesticides or herbicides on the property. So when people are spraying the different salts and the different types of things out there, I ask them, please don't spray that on my yard. So I've had neighbors walk out in my yard and try to spray weed kill on dandelions. And I explained to them, look, you don't need to spray that stuff on my yard for one thing. Number two, dandelions are a sign of compacted soil. So the dandelions are doing me a favor by germinating in compacted soil. And number three, we eat the dandelion greens. And if you're spraying shit all over them, then we can't eat them. And they're like, they don't know. I didn't know that. I was confused. Well, you might be so damn confused that you fucking walked out of my yard and started spraying shit everywhere. And obviously I don't say that, but that's what I'm thinking. Why are you spraying stuff in my yard? When the flowers are blooming, people love it. They're like, oh my gosh, the flowers are so beautiful. But when the flowers stop blooming, and then a lot of the wildflowers, when they stop blooming, they'll go to seed and they'll turn brown and fall over. Well, if you're going to collect the seed like I do, you're going to let them fall over, and then there's going to be probably a week or two where you're trying to get a dry spell, and then you're going to go in there and collect all the seeds. I've had neighbors come up and say, or people that have driven by and say, "Oh, what happened to all the beautiful flowers? It looks like garbage now." And they've said, "It looks like garbage." I'm saying, what the fuck do I care about your opinion on my yard? You don't even live here. But really, you have to slow down, and you have to understand that to them, they don't know what happened. They have no idea. They're really surprised. All these flowers have turned brown. Well, they see in every other yard, people just mow down the flowers after the blooms are gone. I'm letting them go to seed. I am trimming them back a little bit so that they stay in the yard. But after I rake the seed out of them, I then chop and drop on the area, and I leave the brown stuff on the ground because the new sets of seed will come out. I need to insulate those seeds because of many of the seeds are allowed to drop, and that's why we have wide spreads of wildflowers and beautiful gardens that I understand are not properly edged and manicured like some of the other properties. But ultimately, I'm using 18th century management techniques with very little carbon inputs, very little fossil fuel, if any, used. We do have a gas mower, but even that mower is maintained every year so that it has a sharp, balanced blade. The engine is moving at optimal performance, and ultimately, it is different because it is organic. It is different because it is natural. It is different because it's certified wildlife habitat. You know, there's a lot of reasons we can go into about why even refreshing the woods. I cut down the whole 2 acres. And some people are confused. Why don't you just cut the trees around the house? I can even demonstrate an argument to you that cutting down the whole 2 acres was better for this piece of property than it would be just to cut down the trees around the house. So for this particular piece of property, we've essentially reset it to a new development. This is how it would have looked after the home was built. They don't cut a little notch out in the 1950s and 1960s. They would have cleared the whole lot. And if they left anything, it would have been very small, 6 to 7 foot trees. But in this case, we cleared the whole lot because we're going to replant it in a silver pasture style because it's very hilly and gets heavily eroded. We want to control that water. We want to have useful garden spaces. Folks, I don't know what else to share with you, but you're going to see gawking neighbors. You're going to see folks walking out on your property and thinking they're doing you a favor by pulling up a weed or spraying it with something. You're going to see folks walking out in your backyard, looking around, going, where did all the trees go? You're going to see, what's all this straw on the ground? They aren't going to take the time to bend over and look at the ground and see that there's like 8 different types of seed in there and that the ground has been cultivated in a certain way. Again, this is a no-till site, no burn site, all organic. We have used, and I always disclose it because you might see the bag in the background or something, we have used some 10-10-10, but we used it at a very, very low application just because the organic stuff wasn't available and we're up against an upcoming rain. But not a single bit, and I'll keep documenting it because people won't believe me, and especially in Martinsville, Virginia with 44 inches of rain, not a single bit of my soil leaves this property for any reason. It is going to stay here. We're going to build soil. We're going to build biologically diverse soil, and we're going to have things growing here that you can't imagine. And the evidence is in the pilot garden. A lot of people don't realize, some of my neighbors think I'm crazy because the pilot area that I set up, I was already talking about this project back here. See, you may be talking about your dream project and people looking at you like, oh, Jim, you ain't going to do that because nobody else has done that before. Well, guess what? You are going to do it. You. I get confused about where the camera is. You are going to do it, man. If you and I were sitting down and you're telling me your dream, I am trying to see it how you see it. See, we're different types of people. We see the outcome. We see the desired outcome. We don't see the all the problems that are there, and that's okay. Now, we experience and we're realistic about the problems, and that's why I'm encouraging you to do a written plan. But ultimately, you're seeing that dream in your mind, and it will happen. It will certainly happen if again, you're willing to take action, which you're demonstrating right now that you are by watching this video of some crazy old shaggy-faced old man, in a midlife crisis, cutting down all the trees. Anyway, most of 8 out of 10 neighbors have been super incredible about this whole project. By the way, it's just been a few people that it just. I don't think if I paved it with gold, they would be happy. They'd be like, it's too shiny. All that gold is just so shiny. Oh my! It seems like such a waste. That gold ought to be. You ought to be doing something else with that gold. Well, guess what? I am paving my yard with gold. I am turning my property into something productive, something that's environmentally stable, something that I can be proud of over time. But it's not that sterile, painted on mess that happens in a lot of communities. It is an all natural space. And I built a community of individuals, just like me, as a small community, but individuals who periodically get together and do a nature trail, or we're looking at helping some of the schools with greenhouses. And we're cooperating with other groups that are a little more hoity-toity than us, and a little less hoity-toity than us, and using local farmers and working with the local economy. But folks, basically, you're doing something different. You're doing something unique. You're setting out as a pioneer. And as one person told me on a chat session, one of the neighbors says, "You're really brave for stepping up and doing this necessary thing for your property." Think about that. Think about that. You're really brave. You're taking a step that others just dream about. They'll watch thousands of hours of YouTube videos when it would take a fraction of that time just to improve their own property. Just a fraction of that time to invest in something, whether it's your career, to generate the funds to buy the property you like, or to even invest in the property you already have. That's what this program is about. I want to thank you for watching. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. And I'm going to go out and spread some alfalfa. I think I've piddled around quite long enough. If there's anything you're going to learn about me is I only work as hard as I have to. There's no sense putting a lot of extra work into something if it's not going to contribute directly to the outcomes. I want to put a lot of extra work into you. I want to help you get to where you want to be. I want to answer your questions. There should be a link below where you can ask your questions. And I want to make sure that you're moving towards your dream. Don't get stuck in the fantasy of Facebook. Don't get stuck in other people's dreams. You deserve to be able to move forward. If you're a high-income professional stuck in a cubicle and you're looking back 20 years from now wishing you had done something, I failed to do my part. If I'm here as a catalyst, I'm here to help you get to the next level. And the next level is not only a good income, but a good environment for your home, good environment for your family, a healthy environment that comes with quality food. It comes with good, moderate exercise. I'm opposed. So many people die of heart attacks in gyms these days. I'm just saying, if you want to ban guns, you should be banning gyms. A lot of people die in those gyms in running shoes. I know if you do a study, you Democrats, if you do a study of the number of people die wearing running shoes, think about that. Ban them running shoes. Anyway, folks, I'm just having a little fun. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Thanks for watching. www.prosperityhomestead.org